Okay, thank you so much for the kind invitation and people at Center for Japanese Studies. Texas A&M University, where I came from, doesn't have a Japanese studies or Asian studies program, so I'm very thrilled to give a talk to those who are specifically interested in Japan. I also want to extend my appreciation to Alexis Wu, who superbly coordinate my two talks this week at University of Michigan. Oh, not this? Okay. Sorry. And when I received this invitation from CJS, I was originally planning to give a talk related to my first and second book, especially the first one, which compared three Korean diasporic groups in Japan and the United States, or maybe the race and the genomic category related to something Japan. And coincidentally, I was lucky enough to invite it for another talk at Michigan this week on racialization in Japan, specifically on racialization in Japan. By the race-related symposium this Tuesday. So for today's talk, I decided to talk about a topic related to my next book project, which is Yaoi and Feminism in Japan. And this is my long-standing and ongoing project, and there are still a lot of things that I have to do before publishing a book. But hopefully I can convey the importance of studying yaoi, or male-male romance, by and for women, which was originally invented in Japan in today's talk. By the way, does anybody know what yaoi or BL? Raise your hand. Okay, good. I'm so happy to get to know. Okay. What?
Not all of us.
Not all. Yeah, I'll explain what it is. Yes, don't worry. That's the reason I'm here. So before talking about yaoi, I'd like to do some exercise with you. I'm going to show you two slides, which was made by my former undergraduate student who took my course on gender. I teach usually gender course and a race course, race-related course. So this was created by my former student in gender course. So the question is, how can you tell someone is a man or woman? So in order to tell man and woman, in fact, there are a lot of thinking, but you can do that without thinking, but why is that? So let's test. So here, there are three photos, and then I want you to identify which person is a woman, and then why is that? So I want you to articulate, first identify, and then articulate why you think that person is a woman. Anyone? So those who think this one is a woman, raise your hand. Nobody. Maybe. Nobody. And then how about this one? Okay. Over there, so why do you think this is a woman?
Honestly, it's difficult to explain. It's a bit of a gut feel type statement, but physiologically, some hair-related, sharper nose, sharper chin.
So sharper chin. Can you elaborate a little bit further? You said the physical aspect. So the chin, the line, jawline,
the lip.
Lip is how. What about the lips?
It's going to sound a little weird to say, but slightly plumper lips, essentially. Then sharper nose.
Sharper nose, which is what makes this person woman?
I don't know if it's what makes that person a woman, but it makes me think. That
Makes you think that, okay. And those who think this one is a biological woman, raise your hand. Okay, over there. Why?
Okay, well, maybe this is cheating, but they look like in Takarazuka.
Exactly. So this is wonderful, you know. I mean, some people here know about Takarazuka theater. That's a Takarazuka theater, one of the mainstream Japanese theater. All in the Takarazuka theater, all performers are biological women, and then they play the both role, male and female role, in the theater. So you think this is Takarazuka theater performing the male role? In fact, correct. But then when I teach at Texas A&M, usually they don't know anything about Japan, so they're really puzzled, you know. First of all, that's like a priest clothing, and then priest, they're really religious, then priest should be man. So as soon as they see the clothing, they think this must be man. So is there anybody who don't know that person is Takarazuka performer? This one. And still think that this one looking more masculine. Yeah. Can you explain which aspect you think that's masculine?
I was actually wondering whether the elaborate costume was hiding feminine features. That could be the reason why the person would be a woman.
So you say that this one is costume hiding feminine feature. So define feminine feature.
Traditionally or biased, way of speaking is curvaceous body, tiny waist,
Yeah.
and then with the costume it hides.
And then breast, right? Yes. So the right answer is this one is a biological woman. So let's say after this, which one? No, this one. Another one. So this time, 3 female women looking. And then which person is a man? And then I want you to elaborate further. Those who think this one is a man, raise your hand. And then if you raise your hand, I'm going to ask you why you think this is a man. No hands? You want to challenge?
What's that?
You want to challenge? This is I think a lot of people think this is a biological woman, but then I saw some hands raising. So could you please elaborate?
I was like passively because of her.
Sorry, I can't.
The size of her hand.
Oh, size of the hand. So the size is important, and the size of the hand looks what? Bigger?
What's that?
The size of the hand looks bigger than what it should be as a woman.
Plus, I thought this was a trick, so I was
Yeah, but after we started logging this, and then you may start wondering, there might be some trick about this model. So yeah, in fact, some of my students, Dr. Suzuki, you are tricking us, my student says, maybe she put Pat here and then just, posing like a woman, Someone who thinks this is a woman, this is a man, raise your hand. Okay, how about this one? All right, so I see hand over there.
It looks to me like a kabuki actor, and I know that kabuki actors are traditionally male, so sorry.
So that's also cheating. Like you have the Japanese culture literacy already. So those who don't have that kind of literacy about Japanese culture, they think, and then they don't even read this kanji. And this kanji is a really male-looking sounding name, Sotome Taiji. The name is sometimes Chinese students say, well, here, this kanji means woman, so it must be woman, but it's also a trick. But he is not a kabuki actor, to be precise, but then it's something similar performance, kabuki theater. And then in that performance, the roles can be both female and male roles are played by biological men. So, I think you did wonderful. I mean, you already knew the answer, unlike my student at Texas A&M who has a lot of difficulty identifying this. This exercise is directly relevant to today's talk in the analysis of yaoi, disentering the heteronormativity and the binary gender system that we tend to take for granted in many contemporary society, to the extent that we don't have to think, or we don't have to even justify. Abby Goffman was a Canadian-born sociologist. As a 73rd president of the American Sociological Association, Goffman made very important contribution to social theory in his study of symbolic interactionism in the form of dramaturgical perspective. His book, The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, is the most famous one. And in his book, Gender Advertisement, which was written in 1978, he proposed the notion of gender display and discussed various codes of gender normality. And according to Goffman, there is nothing natural about gender identity. Therefore, he said that we need to analyze how the society constructs categories within which we refer to. And mostly in the West, the two-sex and two-gender distinction or categories is the code of gender normality. So when we talk about like men, the stereotypical male trait, the stereotypical trait attributed to men are generally like image, like be strong, intelligent, competitive, robust, powerful, in comparison to women's image associated being dependent, emotional, emphatic, vulnerable, weak, and then in terms of sex and gender category, in terms of gender and sex, we tend to classify people into two categories, such as masculine men and then feminine women. The truth is that nature creates more than two categories of sex, including intersex. And there could be more different categories. But again, as I mentioned earlier, in the most contemporary Western society, the two-sex and two-gender distinction is often taken for granted, and we may feel as if this is natural. But this distinction and the normality of gender codes are socially, culturally created. And the government regards gender as a ritualized cultural performance. That is, gender is the result of an active process whereby we are performing it by learning a script or internalizing a set of shorthand codes. In other words, we do gender display all the time, the process whereby we perform the roles expected of us by social conventions that surround us. So if you want to fit in and then function normally, quote unquote normally, we have to learn how to read and send right signal to be normal. So this image is the kind of image you see constantly in our society, and then we think this is okay and normal. We don't even question, nothing wrong about this. And she's reclining toward the car, and she's wearing the camisole in white and then red mini skirt, and then pin heel, and then spreading the leg. It is not comfortable posture. And then when the man taking this posture, immediately a lot of people started thinking, well, there's something weird. If it's not long, but there's something weird, unsettling. And why is that, you know? So that's the reason. So as you can see in this case, without doing quote unquote appropriate gender display that is culturally created in a particular society, any further social interaction becomes very difficult. But visual cultures links up to a larger issue on gender and power. So urban government particularly interested in analyzing advertisement to explore the issue. And what government wanted to achieve in his analysis of advertisement is to make visible what seems to be invisible, or at least below our level of conscious perception by decoding the gender code that we have so much taken for granted. And a culture is the best place to observe this. Advertisement, and by extension, popular media and popular culture is one of culture's exaggerated forms in which cultural codes are best demonstrated. And that's the reason why government chose to analyze advertisement. In my project, I'm examining narratives and illustrations of yaoi novels, since very interesting things are going on. By the way, if you want to explore more about this, the taken for grantedness of gender codes, but you don't want to be bothered by reading government's classic book, I strongly recommend this video. Recommend to watch this film, The Codes of Gender, which I frequently use in my gender-related course. This is really fun, you know. All right, so now let's talk about yaoi. The term yaoi is an umbrella term for the category of media that focuses on erotic, pornographic, or romantic male-male relationship. And this is different from gay comics or gay novels written for gay men. It is an acronym of a Japanese three-word phrase, yamanashi, ochinashi, iminashi. No climax, no punchline, no meaning. The word was created by amateur self-publishing doujinshi, self-publishing writers. You could say in a contemporary word, like fan fiction writers, around the end of the 1970s. And originally, it refers to a specific type of doujinshi parodies of mainstream manga and anime. In the early 1990s, the commercialized original yaoi works emerged, and that is called BL, which is an abbreviation of the term boys' love. And also, the genre has this peculiar name. It deals with relationship of post-pubescent men. So towards the end of the 1990s, the term yaoi was replaced by the BL in Japan, and the BL became a popular genre in the Japanese publishing industry. For instance, BL is one of the major genres of the homepage amazon.co.jp. The company carries tons of work of this type. However, excuse me. However, yaoi is still a common word in a larger Japanese society and outside Japan to refer to male-male romance for women in general. Until it became highly commercialized in the 1990s, yaoi developed as underground activities in the comic market because it deals with social taboos such as depictions of male-male relationship and an explicit sex scenes. Stigma is attached to those who are involved in yaoi-related activity, meaning like writing, reading, selling yaoi-related works. So in 2000, yaoi became a global phenomenon phenomenon. Japanese yaoi comics are particularly popular outside Japan and translated into many languages. Because the selection of works and translation heavily depends on yaoi fandom, what is popular in Japan does not necessarily coincide with works popular outside Japan. For instance, there is a significant difference in the leadership demography between Japan and the US. In some countries, yaoi works are consumed by gay men and pedophiles. So some countries started banning or regulating yaoi-related activities. So here's a photo from my field work. Like this is an annual conference of YaoiCon, usually held in somewhere in California. And this one, 2010, held in San Francisco. And these two ladies came from Philippines. One is 25 years old, and another is 19 years old. And what they have is a pillowcase, not this one, the big one, but then in the pouch. That's a pillowcase. And this pillowcase, it's not a set, it's just a one pillowcase, but it costs $130. And then this lady is purchased 4 sets in Japan. And then when they purchased this in Japan, they're really into these characters. This is a very popular serial comics. And so they got the information that another different version of the pillar of one of the main protagonists will be sold at YaoiCon in San Francisco. Then they decided to flew to the United States. So they got another 3 pillowcases in the US as well as this one. I don't know, I didn't ask, I forgot to ask how much this costs, but this is a bed sheet. I don't know whether they're going to use it or just, use as a tapestry, but then they were really excited, These are the main protagonists of the comic. And then here, another one. So this is a comic they are really into and very popular called Finder Serial. And by the way, these ladies came from Philippines, so all the way from Philippines to Japan, and then from Japan to the United States to purchase these goods. So this is the cover of the comics. I read yaoi comics, but then this is so popular, and my analysis is really focusing on yaoi novels, which is a different media. But then, since this is very popular, I wanted to introduce you. So here is one of the main protagonists, and then this guy is so popular among the yaoi world, and the publisher decided to make a figure, a doll, and then this is called Asami doll. This is the name of this protagonist, Asami, Mr. Asami, and then this is about 65 centimeter tall. So 30 centimeters is something about this. So it's pretty big, it's pretty big. And and you can play with that. So this person in a storyline smokes, and smoking, and then suits is an important part of this character. And then if you want, you can take his clothes off. And guess what? How much this doll? 75 centimeter, about this size. Yeah, that is a great guess. Actually, it was 1,000. Yeah, in Japanese one, 99,750 yen. So in conversion at that time is $1,000. That is a great guess. And then one of my friends, who is a professional BL author, said that she purchased 2 of this. And I went, what, 2? What purpose? And she said that one to just look and then preserve nicely, and then another one is to play with. I didn't even ask further questions. So anyway, so you might want to know the scale of the BL industry in Japan, which is a kind of the economic impact of this industry. First, let's look at the economic impact. So it's an industry of approximately $120 million annually for, as of 2006. I have to update this, the figure. This was a figure, breakdown and the figure provided the Yaoi scholar, Nagaike, in 2009. And then manga, this is the comics and novels are novels with illustration and the most popular media, with manga generating $4 million per month, with novel sales generating $2.5 million per month, and then with CD generating $1.5 million per month, and the video games generating $1.6 million per month. And then the amount this amount doesn't include transaction of the fan fiction activities, in which, like doujinshi, in which some authors and their sales contractors gain benefit. So the market is actually far, even much bigger than this. As I mentioned earlier, the yaoi-related activity has become a social phenomenon that significantly influences Japanese mainstream culture. Therefore, one of my major research questions is why and how this underground subculture emerged as a major social phenomenon in contemporary Japan, and also why do heterosexual women write and lead male-male love story instead of reading or writing lesbian story or heterosexual romances? What do Japanese girls and women gain through the invention and the development of yaoi methodology, represented by such as the Ukesame framework, which I'm going to explain later. So in other words, my research question is, what do Japanese women want and achieve through yaoi? And more recently, I'm interested in like the global diffusion and impact of yaoi and the cyber feminism. How they are used as feminism, how they're used to demystify rape myths or promoting or hindering LGBTQ identity in the global space, including the cyberspace. And these are main questions that I have been working on in my larger project related to yaoi. And in this presentation, however, I would like to intervene in scholarship of yaoi by examining and questioning the degree of agency of Japanese women who produce these highly commercialized media in relation to feminism, in particular, their attempt to destabilize and denaturalize heteronormative hegemony and the gender hierarchy at the level of discourse. So in terms of their data, I examined more than 800 Japanese commercial BL novels in order to obtain descriptive statistics. There aren't so much descriptive statistics about the yaoi or quantitative research about this. I chose my sample in this study by monitoring the shift of ranking of BL works of Amazon.co.jp for the several years, so that my study can reflect the preference of general consumers. And furthermore, I conducted in-depth interviews with Japanese professional BL writers and fans, as well as informant interviews with BL industry people. While some people state that BL is mere pornography for women, the pornographic aspect doesn't have to be central in BL writing. Rather, it is more precise to say that romance is an indispensable component in BL. In answering the question, what do you want to achieve in writing BL? In my interviews, some top-selling professional BL novelists emphasize depictions of partnership more than any other aspect. And the erotic or pornographic elements are mostly service to readers or response to requests by publishers. So no one can develop a romance without a partner. You can't develop romance just being alone. Therefore, in writing BL novel, there has to be a couple or couple to be. And what is more important here is that the couple always consists of uke and seme. And uke and seme are fundamental parameter of BL construction that should be never underestimated. Uke is a penetrated, and then seme is a penetrator in sexual intercourse. The table shows that some archaic stereotypical characteristics of each as a basic framework, and also statistically speaking, for seme, more masculine traits are assigned, while for uke, more feminine traits are assigned. The seme in early works has more masculine traits, like a physique. He tends to be older than uke. He tend to possess leadership and initiative in the relationship. In terms of sexuality, seme is more likely to be heterosexual or bisexual. In the case of seme in BL, bisexuality is often interpreted as strong sexual appetite and therefore signifies stronger masculinity. And some archaic stereotypical uke have a more feminine physique. He tends to be younger than seme. He's characterized by obedience and is submissive in the relationship. He is to be protected by seme. The centrality of uke and the seme framework is clearly manifested in the cover illustration of BL novels. You may find many heterosexual romantic novels for women with a cover of a beautiful heroine alone without her partner, but in BL world, the cover illustration should and must include both uke and seme. And the identification of uke and seme seems easy for many people at first glance. And then these are the two separate books, the cover of two yaoi novels, BL novels. And you can easily tell which one is seme and uke. Like size matters, and then the height, for instance. And then also the attire, usually the suits, and then especially this one, I'm not sure whether he's wearing a three-piece, maybe not. But then suits and necktie, that's an important aspect of Japanese construction of masculinity compared to the casual jean style. And then this one, of course, is seme, and then this one is uke. And it's easy to tell because the posture is very important. Not only he's showing his skin, but also he's tied. His hands are tied, and then his body, is descended. Some kind of weird contortion things going on, which is make him vulnerable. So another one, and so for instance, this is the easy one, but then however, I did some small experiment with North American people, including North American gender and sexuality scholars, suggest that it isn't in fact so easy for them if they don't know anything about the Japanese culture. So here, this one is in the eyes of North American in general, for whose physical machismo is highly celebrated as a defining characteristics of masculinity. Illustration is most protagonists, both uke and seme, were seen as less masculine. And this one, for instance, this one, for instance, this is a comics. It's not a novel, comics. But then this is the cover of the comics. And then this is the inside cover illustration of the same comics. So it's the same couple. And then when I ask, including the scholars of gender studies, and sometimes they can't really articulate which one is seme and which one is uke, and why is that? And some people say, okay, North American scholars say, okay, he's wearing pink shirts, therefore he must be the uke, you know. But then for instance, what is going on is even though he's wearing suits here, the typical salaryman masculine model, but then the posture really matters. This is, in government term, is the literalization of subordination posture. So it is not only defenseless, but it connotes the sexual availability in the gender display. And then this one, even though, you know, pink is, well, by the way, pink is not universally feminine color. You know, some countries, pink is masculine, you know, for boys. But in American society, pink is usually for feminine. So some people say, well, this is uke. But then what is important in this illustration is the hand here. So the man, the seme is the one who initiate the action. So this one is a little bit difficult one for the North American people. And let's see. For Japanese women who are familiar with BL, it's almost impossible to make a mistake in identifying who is uke and who is seme when looking at the cover illustration. While this point is often taken for granted by BL fans and scholars, in fact, it is very important from a sociological point of view. BL is an interesting site to analyze what urban government called gender display. I defined gender display in the beginning. So here, this is novel, the cover of the novel. BL writers, as well as illustrators who assist them, maximally exploit gender codes that they have learned in Japanese society, and then make entertainment by manipulating the codes through uke and seme as media, where the notion of uke and seme might seem the direct reflection of conventional dichotomous heteronormative sex category, which is women and men. Authors consciously and often unconsciously challenge the conventional binary gender understandings of femininity and masculinity that are legitimately assigned to each sex category. And therefore, BL illustrators unhesitatingly apply to biological men with heterosexual orientation postures that are conventionally assigned to women in the art and advertisement. So here again, the size matter, like the height, is very important indicator. And of in many cultures, not just in Japanese cultures, but in many cultures, for instance, the relative physical size of a couple is relevant in gender identification. The taller or bigger one is usually regarded as dominant. And here you see head counting. This one is straight, and then straightforward, looking for straightforward. But then this one is a little bit tilted compared to this one. And then I'm not sure whether you can see his hand, but then from Japanese girls' point of view, this one, the male sinew is a kind of male sexiness. So this illustrator doesn't dismiss. It is explicitly illustrated here. Another example, off-balance and decentered position or head and body counting configurations may be applied to uke, since these poses leave uke in a position where he seems defenseless. So makes he a little bit more feminine compared to the seme. And such position can be read as an expression and acceptance of subordination, submissiveness, and appeasement. As demonstrated in government studies, these are the codes often assigned for biological female. By letting biological men display these feminine codes, however, writers and illustrators can manipulate the gender of male protagonists. And in the following, I argue that the seemingly dualistic uke-seme framework in the yaoi methodology, in fact, is the very basic device to subvert gender fixity and is a transgression of dualistic gender norm of hegemonic heteronormativity. So, okay, so this is another covers illustrations from the popular serial. In conventional dualistic view of gender, masculinity and femininity are mutually exclusive. The close examination of my sample revealed that masculinity and femininity can coexist within a simple person regardless of one's sex. Specifically in BL, nearly 100% characters are biological male, but they have both masculine, female traits, masculine and female traits. And although the situation has changed significantly recently since a new genre called Omega Bass was introduced to Japan from the United States, in which an additional gender system is adopted to complicate the conventional the binary gender system. They depict more often the androgynous and the intersex. That's a new phenomenon. Let me give you one concrete example of transgression of dualism from one serialized BL novel, which has two main couples, and this one, couple A, and then couple B. So this one is seme, this one is uke, and then this one is seme, and this one is uke. And then remember the name, and this one, Haruka, seme, and then with this Chinese, this kanji, and then Yoshito with this kanji, and then Tatsuo with this kanji, and then Takafumi this kanji. And then let's see this table. This table shows the who is masculine and who is more feminine, and it is part of a broad spectrum, not the discrete category, but the broad spectrum when coupling are made, depending on the amount and kind of feminine and masculine factors of each individual and his partner. So Haruka and Tatsuo are seme in couple A and B respectively, whereas Yoshito and Takafumi are uke in the respective coupling. And some independent variables, which is these are independent variables, such as name, occupation, economic standing, appearance, are accounted as gender signifier in BL. The lower score here, and then here, the lower score means that the person is more masculine. In the both couple A and B, seme protagonists have lower total score, whereas uke protagonists have higher total score. And this may seem that the uke-seme framework in BL support the conventional norms of binary gender definition. However, what I want you to pay attention here is the same number. This one, Haruka is seme, and then Takafumi is uke in couple A, in couple B, the same score. So if dualistic gender and the sexual norms are applied as if they were regular heterosexual couples, we would expect that the total score for Haruka would have been lower than that of Takafumi, since Haruka as seme should be more masculine than Takafumi. And above all, Haruka throughout the theory is consistently described as beautiful man, which is usually used as a description for uke characters in the BL word. And then furthermore, the score in each variable indicates seme doesn't have to has to be more masculine than uke in every single variable in order to be seme. No, that's not the case in BL. And then, for instance, I asked you to pay attention to the name. For instance, one way they manipulate the gender is here, the name. So this is, Tatsuo is a hypermasculine name. And then actually he's very hypermasculine in this story. And Tatsu means dragon. And then, oh, this is the literary male. So the male dragon, it sounds really masculine, right? And then the Takafumi, this is like, the sound is, without any mistake, if you know Japanese, this is a male name. But then when you look at the kanji, you know, Taka is like a noble, means like a nobility, noble. And the Fumi is like a cultured person. And so with this kanji, it gives more like a softer side of masculinity compared to this one. And then here, Haruka is seme, but this is interesting because the author used the gender neutral. Haruka is a gender neutral name in Japanese. So until you see that person, you can't really tell the person is a man or a woman. So, but then this also gives the Haruka the gender neutral name to seme, which is a little bit unusual, you know. And then the Yoshito is stereotypically really masculine name, the boy's or man's name. But then when you look at the character, this is also pronounced kajin in Japanese. And a kajin is a little meaning of kajin is a beautiful person. And a beautiful person, but it's usually used for women. If you say kajin, well, that person is kajin, beautiful, and that's a woman. So instead of using other kanji, they also choose this one. So there's a lot of gender manipulation going on here. Another thing is that occupation, socioeconomic standing is a very important indicator in the East Asian, the masculinity to measure the one's position in masculine hierarchy. It is also true in the North American society, but then I think the North America, they tend to emphasize the physical machismo as well as this one. Here, I don't think we have enough time, so I don't go in detail, but then I want you to pay attention to this one, the use of the first person. So the subject, in English, we only have I, and I doesn't have gender. But then in Japanese, if you are a fan of anime and manga, you see sometimes, you know, the girls really gari looking say boku, and then like boku is in fact is gendered, in terms of gender is boy or man. And, but then compared to ore is more masculine sounding. It's not, so the Japanese ichinishō is gendered unlike other language. So for regular Japanese people, for some scholars, or even some Japan scholars who are not so much interested in gender studies or gender issues, they say, looking at this, the table, say, so what? So what? Yeah, but you will notice the significance of consciously manipulating these taken for granted gender codes when you consider the current series of pronouns in English as it relates to LGBTQ issues in contemporary American society. So when I present this table to like a sociologist, they are very impressed, whereas sometimes, you know, Japan scholar may not be impressed because they so much taken for granted the gender manipulation. So again, these yaoi methodologies were already invented by Japanese girls around the end of the 1970s to expose the oppressive nature of gender binary. And now in North America, we are talking a pronoun in the current. So I think to some extent, in terms of methodology, these girls, although some are extremely highly educated, but then some are not, but they really became creative in order to address the oppressive gender law. As demonstrated in this example, gender in BL is defined always in a relational manner, not in an essential way. Hence, there is a dialectical process of gender definition at work. It's a dynamic process of gender construction as opposed to one that is static. Who is more masculine, a penetrator, or who is more feminine, penetrated in the act of intercourse, therefore depends on which partner one has. Indeed, in this story, there was a situation in which psychological ties between Haruka and Tetsuo, both are seme, might turn into a sexual relationship. And then interestingly, Haruka, whose basic sexual orientation is heterosexual, had doubtless the expected role of the woman in relation with Tetsuo. And therefore, BL, the particular kind of coupling is very important for both writers and readers. Even if the relation of uke and seme seems to imitate heteronormative gender roles, in reality, the difference of gender roles is very much context dependent. Gender role differences are born only in a specific context or in a relationship with a specific partner. While dealing with only one sex, in this case, man, one of the cardinal contributions of BL literature is to construct human relationships that have more subtle and more divergent power balances. So here's an interesting anecdotal story that I got from my interviewees with the professional BL writer. And we are chatting, like I was interviewing with this professional writer, and then she started talking about, like, in order to explain uke and seme. So we are at the tea house and drinking tea. We are doing afternoon tea. And then she suddenly pointed teapot, and then she picked up the teapot cover, and then look. And then she put it back, the teapot cover. And then, so teapot is uke, and then teapot cover is seme. Because I was like, what? What are you talking about? And then she said, well, see, it's inserted. So inserted, the cover is inserted. So that is the seme. And now she says that another action, she started pouring tea into a cup. See, this one pointing the teacup, and this is uke, and this one, teapot, is seme. So context dependent. So the teapot can be seme, uke, and seme. Anyway, so that I thought this anecdotal story was really striking to me, because I never thought, like when looking at things, I never thought that is uke and that is seme. But that's the BL way of thinking. Everything is in a relational context. So let's wrap up, and then if we have time, let's move on to discussion. In this presentation, I argue that transgression of gender norms and the subversion of gender fixity are taking place in more the BL works. Unlike some early works of male-male romance by and for women, such as Shonen Ai and early yaoi doujinshi, if you know those are, which try to escape from the female sex altogether, and then seems to possess a kind of hatred and avoidance of femininity assigned by society, contemporary BL does not elude the feminine. Femininity is a part and parcel of its dialectical construction of gender and desire. In the latter half of the 1980s and the early 1990s, when I interviewed Japanese women who were involved in yaoi-related activity, not a few of them were conscious of both sexual and gender oppression, and some found clear feminist agenda in their yaoi-related activity. Now, many BL fans and also authors, even authors, shun from the feminist interpretation of BL. Unlike the previous yaoi generation, these women are no longer say, I wish I were a man. They were more frequently say, I read or write BL because it's fun. I don't feel any oppression as a woman. That's what they usually say. And surely these women don't share the pressing need that women had to undergo in the age of various experiments in earlier works like shoujo manga and yaoi doujinshi. And a commercial BL took maximum advantage of this yaoi method without having to endure the difficulty that earlier generation who invented this yaoi method had to go through. So here I'd like to pose a question. Would yaoi, including BL-related activity, be an effective political strategy to resist and change Confucian-based cultural practices that are tied to oppression of the feminist female gender when contemporary BL authors and consumers are not conscious agents of resistance and change? And then the answer to the question could be totally opposite depending on how we understand agency, the concept of agency linked to the issue of subversion. If we adopt the notion of gender as performance as proposed by scholars such as Goffman, I explained in the beginning, and then also the Western and Zimmerman, if you do gender studies, which presumes pre-existing agency of doer that might seek resistance and change, it is hard to speculate that yaoi would become an effective political strategy, precisely because many of contemporary BL authors and fans negate the feminist aspect in these activities. However, Judith Butler's notion of performativity that consists of the reiteration of norms suggests a different scenario. Butler argues that the performativity is the open-ended processes of reiteration and recitation that provide the conditions of possibility for subversive repetition, and thus also for agency. In this case, it's interesting. In this case, precisely because of the doer is not an intentional subject who stands behind the act as its originator, but it's rather constitute within it. In Butler's term, let me quote, the doer will be the uncertain working of the discursive possibility by which itself is worked, unquote. So while this way of conceiving agency and possibility for resistance and change seems overtly optimistic, they may not be impossible. So indeed, recent self-publishing activities among professional writers are becoming more experimental by adopting more radical interpretation of gender relations while still using the highly formalized narrative structure of yaoi. What is interesting is that those are works that are rejected for commercial publication due to their deviation from the standard templates in one way or another. So what has to be achieved, has been achieved through BL, more specifically the invention and the use of Yaoi method and methodology, inherently feminist, regardless of what authors and leaders consciously express, since women's liberation from oppressive gender is achieved through the discourse of BL literature. So I would say yaoi is one artistic, creative way to deconstruct repressive gender law in a performative manner. And here we see some hope through Butler's understanding performativity and agency. And that's the reason the literature originally created by and for heterosexual women now comes to have a great appeal to LGBTQ people, especially outside, interestingly, especially outside Japan. That's all. Thank you.